Well, it's a big day for me, but it's an even bigger day for this. So today is my last day in New York City and I've got a full day to do something. It is 7:15. The Apple Watch Ultra battery is at 100% and I've got a few places I want to go and see. I'm not going to do anything crazy with the watch. I'm not going to put it into low power mode, but I'm going to use it to track these walks, to use for navigation and that sort of stuff with the battery in normal mode. I just want to see how it copes with a normal day of sightseeing in a big city. On that note, I've got a few really interesting locations, some very famous locations I want to visit. I'm going to fit in as many as possible, and while I'm doing that, tell you what I think about the watchOS 10 updates that are coming later this year, because I think there's some really interesting stuff in there, particularly for the Apple Watch Ultra. So first up, we have the PATRON building. I think that's how you pronounce it. Sorry if it's not New Yorkers, but the PATRON building. This huge building behind me was used in the original Spider-Man trilogy, but also in Armageddon. So you may in fact, you won't recognize it because it's just covered in scaffolding at the moment. Still very impressive. So the first big update in watchOS 10 is a completely new look for Apple apps. That's an important distinction because at the moment, obviously, it's just Apple showing off their own apps in watchOS 10, although I'm guessing, well, in fact, developers will do the same thing. And basically, they make better use of these bigger screens we're getting, which is really good news for the Ultra, because this is the biggest display you can get on an Apple Watch, and occasionally some of the apps do feel a little bit cramped or just a bit kind of ported over from smaller watches. I couldn't miss this one out. It's the Empire State Building, and it's been used in over 250 TV shows and movies. I've had to note, well, my girlfriend noted them down, there's that many of them. So it was in the first ever King Kong in 1933. It was in Superman 2, Elf, brilliant. Independence Day, How I Met Your Mother, Zoolander, The Dark Knight Rises. The list is absolutely endless, and trust me, when you're here, it is seriously impressive. Okay, it's 8:38, I've got 95% battery left, and I think now is a good time to talk about today's sponsor, which is Pitaka. Since I've been in New York, I've been using their carbon fiber watch band, which is this new Rhapsody version. And this is the world's first Apple Watch band that's been made with carbon fiber and aramid fiber links. That makes it incredibly strong, light, and also durable, and it's why they use carbon fiber on race cars and aircraft. And because you can't dye carbon fiber, Pitaka have used this very clever weaving technology to give it this really unique look. They've literally weaved the design into the carbon fiber on the band, which looks really cool. You also get additional links to change the size of the band, which is really easy to do. You get this little metal tool to take the pins in and out. And in terms of securing it on your wrist, you get this magnetic clasp, which is absolutely rock solid. I don't have any worry about my Apple Watch Ultra with this band. It's compatible with every single Apple Watch from the Series 1 to the Apple Watch Ultra, and it has been one of the most comfortable and I think best looking Apple Watches I've used. So to find out more, click that link in the description, and thank you very much to Pitaka for sponsoring this video. Next up in watchOS 10, we have the return of widgets. And widgets were actually in watchOS many years ago, but they were kind of taken out. And this new version takes cues from the iPhone. And they're fairly big cues because basically they're smart stacks. If you've ever used smart stacks on the iPhone where you can have several widgets within one widget, that's what they've added to watchOS 10. And from what I understand, they use machine learning, not AI, to show you the most appropriate or useful information at just the right time. And I think they've done this for two reasons. I think the first reason is to go along with the theme of making watchOS 10 look as fresh and new as possible, but also because, as I've mentioned in previous videos, Apple does seem to be using widgets as a way to unify their operating systems. Welcome to Grand Central Station. I included this because, well, my girlfriend included this because of all the rom-coms apparently that have been filmed here. Those include Friends with Benefits with Justin Timberlake, haven't seen that, and some others which I just won't mention. But Men in Black was filmed in here when they find that alien in the locker room. But also The Avengers, I Am Legend, 2012, loads of stuff basically. But you can see why. It's a stunning rail terminal. Oh, and obviously I couldn't leave here without pointing out that there is an Apple store in the station. It's a surprisingly big Apple store as well. And as much as I'd love to buy myself another MacBook, I don't need one, and I've got other stuff to do, so let's crack on. Sorry, Tim. Okay, so it's 9:07 and I have 92% battery remaining. Remember, I haven't got any of the battery saving things on. This is completely normal battery mode. And while I'm on my way to my next destination, a quick word on two other updates and their new watch faces. The first one is Snoopy and Woodstock. These two characters basically get involved with the weather and your activities. They add a bit of fun to your watch. And then there's Palette, which has these kind of three coloured circles which change colour throughout the day. We have to let Apple do this. Every watchOS update brings with it new faces. That is the Plaza Hotel, which featured in Home Alone 2, Lost in New York, one of my favourite ever films. It's basically where Kevin goes and rinses his dad's credit card. And yeah, being here is quite special actually. I couldn't come to this part of New York without mentioning possibly the world's most famous Apple store on Fifth Avenue. This is just this great big cube of glass. It was closed, I think, in 2017 for a big renovation. They reopened it a couple of years ago and, well, just look at it. Something else that caught my eye during the watchOS 10 announcement was all the stuff they're doing with cycling. I used to do quite a bit of road biking myself. I don't do it quite as much these days, but I do appreciate how big these updates are for bikers. The first thing is that watchOS 10 will be compatible with a number of Bluetooth accessories for bikes, and that means that it can grab data that the watch itself can't grab. So things like speed and cadence are properly measured. But one of the coolest things when it comes to cycling and watchOS 10 is the way that it interacts with the iPhone. Basically, you get your cycling workout as a live activity on the iPhone, but if you tap that live activity, it takes you into a full screen display of your performance. It wouldn't be a trip to New York without a trip to Central Park, but there's so many other movies that have been filmed here, including Ghostbusters, The Avengers, When Harry Met Sally, Night at the Museum, Spider-Man 3, the list is endless once again. However, in watchOS 10, we are getting some really interesting stuff from Apple for hikers. So the first thing is three-dimensional views of where you've been. It also has this very cool feature where it estimates the last place at which you had cellular activity and also where you can make an SOS call from. They've added some other very interesting hiking stuff into watchOS 10, including trail information, so you can now get photos of trails, time, the estimated difficulty, and finally you can download offline maps, a bit like Google Maps. So on the evening of the 8th of December 1980, which was 2 months after I was born, John Lennon was assassinated here by Mark Chapman. This feels incredibly moving as well. My dad's a massive Beatles fan. I love them too. Wow, I love them too as well. And I think just being here, there's an atmosphere here. It's really strange, but this is where one of the greatest songwriters of all time lost his life, and wow. There was a big focus on mental health during WWDC this year, and watchOS 10 wasn't left out. Basically, you can log how you're feeling throughout the day, and the watch gives you notifications to make sure you do it. You can then view the history of your state of mind in the Health app on the iPhone and the iPad, which is a very nice way of keeping track of how you're feeling. Felt like I needed something more positive after that last location, so I've come to John Lennon's first New York City home, which is this building here, 105 Bank Street. If there was one weird update for watchOS this year, it was to do with vision and more specifically, vision health. And I think like a lot of people, I just sat there and thought, how can the Apple Watch help with your vision? As it turns out, it's all to do with your exposure to sunlight. So what watchOS 10 does is take the ambient light sensor on your Apple Watch and basically measure how long you spend in broad daylight. And it's all to do with lowering the risk of myopia. And I really couldn't come to this area, could I, without visiting the friend's apartment. Really surreal being here, and there's loads of tourists like me taking photos of it and doing lots of could I be anywhere else, those sort of terrible Chandler impersonations. But yeah, that's the friend's apartment, which wasn't actually the friend's apartment, because I don't want to ruin it for you, but they filmed it in a studio. But let's just pretend they lived there. If you're a Fitness Plus user, you'll be glad to hear that watchOS 10 has some relatively interesting updates in that area. The first one is to select custom plans for workouts, so you can choose things like the days, the duration, the type of workouts, and even the music. You can also create workout stacks, so you can basically group together a bunch of workouts to more easily move between them. I like the idea of that because at the moment you have to kind of stop the workout, choose the next one, and it's a bit of a pain. So the ability to create a stack of workouts, I think I'll use. I just had to come here. This is Hook and Ladder 8, which is otherwise known as Ghostbusters HQ, another one of my favourite movies as a kid. And what I love about this place is that on Google Maps, it's literally called Ghostbusters HQ. The next location relates to my favourite TV show of all time, The Sopranos, and it's this, Mulberry Street Bar and Restaurant. I can't list all of the movies that feature Times Square because this video would be another 20 minutes long, which I'm sure you don't want, but a taster. There's I Am Legend, Phone Booth, Vanilla Sky, Spider-Man 2 with that fight between Spider-Man and Elektra, Deep Impact, and loads more. It is one of the busiest places I've ever been to in my entire life. But aside from that, the sheer scale of this place, again, for a normal British bloke who comes from a place called Northampton, which is tiny, is just, you just cannot get your head around it. As for the Apple Watch Ultra, I've literally just received a notification that I've burned the most ever calories on a walk. So I've done 24 kilometers and nearly 31,000 steps. And it's 4 o'clock and I've got 52% battery remaining, which I think is pretty good given what this thing has been doing today. There's been no battery saving turned on, and it's done all of that navigation, you know, searching for satellites, all of the tracking of that long walk. I've got a pretty long journey home now, but I'm fairly confident that the rest of the Apple Watch Ultra battery will get me home. And that's the kind of thing that you need to think about with the Ultra. It's much better than any other Apple Watch when it comes to the battery life, but you can't expect miracles. Let me know what you think about my experience in this city in the comments, please. And if you've enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up. That helps the channel massively. And if you've still got some time, keep watching for a link to the other video that I made over here, which is a review of the brand new 15-inch MacBook Air.